religious policies.
We are giving our churches their voices back. We are giving them back in the highest form.
Christian faith advisors.
Back to politics now. Donald Trump announcing the formation of a faith advisory board after meeting with evangelical leaders and conservative Christians yesterday.
And this, I believe, is a new beginning for us.
Fighting the tyranny of great persecutory religion.
Mr. Trump is a bold and fearless leader who will take the fight to our enemies and to the radical Islamic terrorists, whether they attack in San Bernardino, Orlando, or Paris.
Ending religious restrictions.
President Trump will sign a new executive order this morning targeting rules that separate religion and politics.
The president's order will attempt to roll back the Johnson Amendment.
Tax exemptions and benefits to sustain the church via the state.
And to this end, this financial threat against the faith community is over.
A time when speaking against the country and its prosperity is speaking against God himself.
Don't you turn that off and say, well, I ain't going to vote anyway. You're going to be held seriously to account by God if you don't vote. And you're going to find that out before this broadcast is over. You're going to be guilty of murder. You're going to be guilty of an abomination of God.
In other words, he's authentically, whether people like it or not, has been raised up by God, because God says that he raises up and places all people in places of authority. It is God that raises up a king. It is God that sets one down. And so when you fight against the plan of God, you're fighting against the hand of us. He said, go possess. We were not sent into this earth to fit in or just to, we weren't just sit here to be a part. We were sent here to take over.
Are you listening?
I'm trying.
That's the church.
Sound familiar? The spirit of Constantine is alive today in the United States. And that should concern us all if we're aware of who Constantine was and his role in shaping not only the Roman Empire, but also how he swept the early Christian church into base corruption. We're going to show you how the spirit of Constantine has been revived in the United States, and we're going to get into that right now. The ancient Roman Empire developed its Christian roots in Europe, leading the church into the march of perdition. It began with Emperor Constantine in the early 4th century with the Edict of Milan. This was an edict of tolerance. Now, understand that this was an emperor-wide religious policy. Then it became the favored religion, and then very quickly, Christianity, so-called, became the official and only religion of the Roman Empire. It was here that the Roman Catholic Church was brought to life. Before this time, Sol Invictus, the invincible sun, was the official sun god of the Roman Empire. Constantine professed conversion to Christ and carried the church into the throne room of the empire, while retaining the sun-worshipping elements of Sol Invictus. And his influence cannot be understated. Eusebius, Bishop of Caesarea, a Catholic historian holding advisory status to Constantine, stated that Constantine desired to use the power of this God, this Christian God, to unify the empire and to give him a secure and successful reign. Constantine's conversion came through his desire to win against his opponent, Maxentius, who he perceived to be the enemy of the empire. When he won, he dedicated his imperial reign to the Christian God, and thereby his empire as well. Constantine didn't come to God personally as a man, but he came to God as an emperor. Therefore, his Christianity affected the entire empire, and this was reflected in his policies. By the will of the people was written on his coins, signifying the overthrow of Maxentius, the opponent of Rome. On the Ark of Constantine, there's an inscription there, and it reads, inspired by a divinity, he used his army to save the state by a just force of arms from a tyrant. Therefore, the Senate and the people of Rome have dedicated this exceptional ark to his triumphs. Quite resounding honor for Constantine, yes? Constantine's council chambers had the imperial bodyguards replaced with bishops and Catholic advisors. Throughout his reign, he did many things which contradicted his religious beliefs. But Eusebius of Caesarea wrote how the emperor paved the way to usher in the Dark Ages. Constantine made the priests of God his advisors, and through it his duty to honor God, who had appeared to him with all devotion. Then, being strengthened by his hope in God, he went quickly on to fight the fire of tyranny.
Constantine saw in Christianity a way of uniting the empire, a new ideology that would give everybody the same God, the same moral values.
Constantine, by legalizing Christianity, opened up a space where the Bishop of Rome could become a permanent fixture on both the spiritual and the political scene.
What Constantine did is take the bishops who had been previously persecuted and make them his agents. He treated them like members of his administration. So now he would take the Bishop of Egypt, the Bishop of Jerusalem, the Bishop of Athens, and state power would go through them.
Bishops become important people in the local community.
His Christian advisors heralded him as the anointed of God to overthrow the adversaries and to triumph gloriously in bringing in the messianic era where the followers of Christ may reign. When Lactantius, who was an advisor of Constantine, was eventually rejected as Constantine's advisor, he studied and foretold prophetically that the Roman Empire would fall. But the church rejected this. Historians tell us that many Christians felt that any expectation of the downfall of the empire was as disloyal to God as it was to Rome. Constantine afforded the church great honors above others. The taxation of property was remitted. He showed honor to bishops, treating them favorably in his courts. He gave vast amounts of money for their support. Eusebius states that, quote, the emperor personally invited God's ministers to spend time with him. He showered them with every possible honor, treating them favorably as people who are consecrated to the service of his God. He let them join him at his table. He supplied for the poor, especially for the Christians, with food, clothing, and money. He enacted policies favoring the church, and for this cause, many knew nothing of God or Christ. They came into the church with their idols because the Christians were so privileged. This was the beginning of a radical de-reformation and Christianization of the Roman Empire. It led to the tyranny of the Dark Ages and the persecution of God's saints in papal Europe. That spirit has been rekindled in the United States of America. In the book of Revelation, America comes up like a two-horned lamb, but it speaks as a dragon. Now remember, the lamb is Christian. It is a nation that apparently is Christian outwardly, but at the heart of the nation, Washington, D.C., where laws are enacted, he will utter the voice of the dragon in issuing satanic legislation.
Most importantly, I brought my Bible.
We're told that it will exercise all the power of the first beast before it, which was the papacy, who ruled in tyranny over Europe in the Dark Ages, and exercised the power of the state. There is where Constantine's reign had led the church.
We've allowed the devil to come in and take over every realm of society, and the church has done absolutely very little about it. Because we were told it's not our duty. We were told separation of church and state, which is a bunch of garbage. The separation of church and state is to keep the government from sticking its nose in the church. People don't even know the history of this great country. Why do you think America has been the greatest nation on the face of the earth all of these years, and everybody wants to come and live here?
Don't be concerned at this time about the direction that the nation is taking. For you see, you are in transition. You are transitioning to one nation under God. Hallelujah. Indivisible.
We will be one people under one God, saluting one American flag.
This is the precipice the United States is rapidly racing towards, a revival of the Dark Ages. Let's look at how.
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him.
I will tell you, Christianity is under siege, whether we want to talk about it or we don't want to talk about it. But the power of our group of people together, I mean, if you add it up, I was trying to do it the other day. I was with one of the great ministers, and I said, how many Christians do you think? And it could be like 240, 250 million, you know, a big portion of, and yet we don't exert the power that we should have. Now, I think some of the churches are afraid of their tax status, to be honest. You know, they're afraid they're going to lose their tax status if they get too political. Some of them just can't endorse. But, you know, the fact is that there's nothing the politicians can do to you if you band together. You have too much power. But the Christians don't use their power. They don't use your power. And honestly, you have, by far, it's the strongest. I mean, you talk about lobbies, you have the strongest lobby ever. But I never hear about a Christian lobby. We are getting less and less and less powerful in terms of a religion and in terms of a force. I get elected president, we're going to be saying Merry Christmas again. Just remember that. And by the way, Christianity will have power without having to form, because if I'm there, you're going to have plenty of power. You don't need anybody else. You're going to have somebody representing you very, very well. Remember that.
The power promised is the same power exercised by the church during the Dark Ages. By repeating the same steps as Constantine, Donald Trump has risen to prominence and is taking the church with him.
We, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and restore its promise for all of our people. Together, we will determine the course of America and the world for many, many years to come. What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. January 20th, 2017 will be remembered as the day the people became the rulers of this nation again. Everyone is listening to you now. You came by the tens of millions to become part of a historic movement, the likes of which the world has never seen before. We assembled here today are issuing a new decree to be heard in every city, in every foreign capital, and in every hall of power. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones, and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth. The Bible tells us how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. We must speak our minds openly, debate our disagreements honestly, but always pursue solidarity. When America is united, America is totally unstoppable. There should be no fear. We are protected, and we will always be protected. We will be protected by the great men and women of our military and law enforcement. And most importantly, we will be protected by God. Now arrives the hour of action. I would like to thank the evangelical and religious community, because I'll tell you what, the support that they've given me, and I'm not sure I totally deserve it, has been so amazing and has had such a big reason for me being here tonight. They have much to contribute to our politics, yet our laws prevent you from speaking your minds from your own pulpits. An amendment pushed by Lyndon Johnson many years ago threatens religious institutions with a loss of their tax-exempt status if they openly advocate their political views. Their voice has been taken away. I am going to work very hard to repeal that language.
Like Constantine, who overcame his adversary, Maxentius, through the sign of Christianity, Donald Trump has carried the spirit of Antichrist into the White House by appealing to evangelicals to overcome the globalist agendas of Hillary Clinton.
About Hillary in terms of religion. Now, she's been in the public eye for years and years, and yet there's nothing out there. There's like nothing out there. It's going to be an extension of Obama, but it's going to be worse, because with Obama you had your guard out. With Hillary you don't, and it's going to be worse. What you really have to do is you have to pray to get everybody out to vote for one specific person. And we can't be, again, politically correct and say we pray for all of our leaders, because all of your leaders are selling Christianity down the tubes, selling the evangelicals down the tubes. And it's a very, very bad thing that's happening.
He is repeating the steps of Constantine and bringing evangelicals into prominence in the United States by treading where that old emperor's feet have trod.
Constantine gives Romans a political and financial incentive to convert to Christianity. He gives Christians tax breaks and makes churches tax exempt.
Constantine is the reason why churches are now in the U.S. tax-free entities. Constantine is the reason why churches have this special status.
From the time of Constantine, the church had been the ally of the emperor, and the church became the ally of rulers as rulers became Christian. There was no feeling that there should be a separation between church and state. Church and state worked together.
Dean Young, who pushed the Ten Commandments Amendment in Alabama, which was passed, referred to America as the Western Christian Empire, and that it was under attack. Trump was the ardent opponent of a globalist figure and a friend of the Protestant church who would stand to recognize them in his newly elected office.
I think somehow the Lord's plan is being put in place for America, and these people are not only revolting against Trump, they're revolting against what God's plan is for America. These other people have been trying to destroy America. These left-wingers and so-called progressives are trying to destroy the country that we love and take away the freedoms they love. They want collectivism, they want socialism, and what we're looking at is free markets and a freedom from this terrible overarching bureaucracy.
Just as with Constantine, it was the will of the people that voted him in. The church banded together, and Trump kept his promise. He brought the Lamb into the court of the dragon, just as Constantine did of old.
Pastor Jeffers?
Yes.
Prayer?
Let's pray together, may we?
Yes. Here, I think we'll start with Secretary Pompeo saying a prayer. Mike?
Thank you.
He made them his advisors, gave them tax exemptions. He lavishes them with honor. They sit at his table.
But this president, as far as I know, is the first one ever to honor the evangelical community in such a wonderful way, to have a dinner for the leaders.
They conduct Bible studies with the entire administration, including the Senate.
Faith on display at the highest level. God, our Father. This recent cabinet meeting with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo leading in prayer. And it's not just here or for the cameras.
There are a number of men and women on the cabinet who have Bible study every Wednesday morning.
Energy Secretary Rick Perry is a regular.
Number one, it gives us an opportunity to see each other and outside of our normal work environment. But it's also sending a message that this administration bases its life experiences on that biblical values.
The Bible study is led by Ralph Drollinger of Capital Ministries. Along with Perry, Secretaries Mike Pompeo, Betsy DeVos, and Ben Carson all attend. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley and Attorney General Jeff Sessions also take part. And Vice President Pence goes when he can. And each week, President Trump gets a copy of Drollinger's teaching.
From my perspective,
when it comes to the naysayers, Perry poses this question.
I've always asked people who are, sometimes critical when I was the governor of Texas about, actions that we might have taken, and I said, I try to be instructed biblically, and which one of the 10 Commandments do you not like?
He is, according to the evangelical church, quote, raised up for such a time as this to, quote, usher in the return of Christ and lead America to, quote, return to legislative policies pleasing to God. He is to, quote, fight the fires of tyranny of ISIS and radical extremist persecutors, as well as secular Democrats. It all sounds good. It looks pleasant to the eyes. It may look like a course desirable to make America wise. But in actuality, it is the invariable venom of the dragon that will lead to a revival of the Dark Ages. Trump has brought the core evangelicals, as they are called, into a position where they may promote an unbridled gospel of politics and power by politics instead of power by the gospel of Christ, by renouncing the restrictions through the Johnson Amendment, while of course still receiving benefits from the state to support the institutions of the church. The president's Evangelical Advisory Board is doing substantial work with the Trump administration behind closed doors, without any sunlight for the public to understand how and why decisions are being made. For example, the president's sudden transgender ban for serving in the military came only moments after his evangelicals discussed in a meeting arranged by the White House staff. Just as the bishops and priests sat at Constantine's table, the evangelicals are sitting at Trump's. He even hosted a dinner for them. Unprecedented access and influence is given to one religious group, just like the Catholic advisors of Constantine of old. They have influence on policy decisions that affect everyone in the United States. For example, not only did the church become corrupt, but religious liberty was forfeited and persecution erupted against the commandment-keeping people of God. As it once was, so it will be again. Donald Trump is Constantine revived. And the prophecy that has been slumbering for 1900 years seen by the Revelator, John the Apostle, is about to meet its most startling fulfillment. May our hearts be ready to stand with Christ, and may our names be written in the Lamb's Book of Life. God bless you.